Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the webinar. We're going to be talking about financial fraud and specifically how to prevent it with real-time graph analytics. Pleasure to welcome two of my colleagues and co-workers here today to help do that. So just by way of introduction, my name's Dan. I'm Chief Product Officer at Cambridge Intelligence. We're one of the two organizations presenting today. I'm going to be hosting you, but most of the work today is going to be done by David and Paige. David is with Progress as a Senior Principal Solutions Engineer, and we have Paige here from Cambridge Intelligence, who's worked with a lot of our customers on implementing and designing solutions for data visualization. So you've got a good team. There should be all the right people for you to ask questions of us, and we'll have a little Q&A at the end where you can ask us anything you want to. So I'll just go through the plan for today. After a little bit of setting the scene from me, I'm going to hand over to David. He is going to give you a bit more background on specifically the fraud data challenge, what the challenge is, and why this kind of technology is necessary to handle it. And we're going to do a little bit of switching back and forth between David and Paige. So Paige is going to talk a little bit about the visualization and user interface that investigators and analysts need, and how that is integrated with databases and backend technology under the hood. We'll then switch back to David, who will talk a bit about some specific use cases that this technology can be used to handle. And then Paige will wrap things up with a bit of a live demo, show you some kind of real interactive visualizations and how they can really enhance the experience of investigating fraud and financial crime in particular. And then we'll finish up with some contact details for you to get in touch for more, and we'll have that Q&A session I mentioned. So before we do that, I just wanted to set a little bit of the scene as to who we are today. There's two organizations on the webinar, so I thought it'd be good to explain that a little bit. So I'll start with our side of the picture, Cambridge Intelligence. We're a company that builds essentially user interfaces, so visualizations, interactive visualizations, which solve what I would call complex connected data challenges. You're going to hear a lot more about that today. And the images you see in that slide are reflecting the fact that our libraries are used to build all sorts of different UIs for different industries and use cases. On the next slide, I've got some pictures of some of those use cases. So it's not specifically only financial crime, anti-fraud. We work in a lot of other sectors. But today, we're going to talk specifically about the financial crime, anti-fraud use case. And we can't do this alone. So our libraries are they're kind of the last piece between the user, the analyst, and all of the technology behind the scenes that is being run. And so we can only do this in collaboration with our customers and our partners. One of those are other folks at Progress, Mark Logic. So what we'll do today is show you how the combination of our two technologies works really well to solve these problems. So I hope that makes sense. Just a little bit of background to explain why we're here. And with that, I'll hand over to David, and he'll tell you more about the problem we're trying to solve.
Yeah, hi. So thank you. Financial crime is a huge problem, both for consumers and for financial institutions and for governments. So this slide gives a brief overview of just the fraud and financial scams part of it. You know, financial crime is bigger than this. It's really a multi-trillion-dollar problem, but here you can just get an example for how specific use cases are causing pain to especially the customers. And there's a lot of different kinds of crime. You have identity theft, money laundering, tax evasion, fraudulent claims, and identifying and preventing all these, capturing the bad guys is really important. But firms cannot just do that. They have to focus a lot of their energy on things like protecting their customers' data, handling subpoenas and regulatory responses built around financial crime, And there's a lot of other risks that are related to financial crime. So you really need, when you're building your data platform, you don't want to build little silos that just handle one of these, because you'll just spend all of your life doing things that don't generate revenue and that it cost you tons of money and constantly need to be redone. You want to build a platform that can handle all of these needs in one place and is easily customizable. And things are getting worse. The life is getting easier for the criminals. Technology's been growing like crazy in ways that help the bad guys. So generative AI is allowing for deep fakes and voice impersonation. Fake documents are coming out everywhere. You can get emails that look totally realistic because you had a Gen AI program writing it with full knowledge of who you are. Fraud as a service, it's basically become a reality so that criminals can just quickly, with very little time to market, generate new fraud activities that have different capabilities that people aren't necessarily expecting. And all this leads to a lot of challenges. At a technology level, your data that you need to fight financial crime is siloed into many systems. You're limited in what you can do because of privacy constraints. The regulations around financial crime change every day, and it has to be real time. You don't want to figure out who did the crime 3 weeks after the crime occurred. You want to stop the crime from happening. And so at an IT level, you need the ability to analyze suspicious patterns, and that's really where Cambridge comes in. You need to be able to look through your customer profile and find problems with it, potential red flags. You have to bring in all of that siloed data from different sources. You're constantly bringing in new facts, and a lot of the data you have doesn't have your facts isolated. You may have a lot of free-flowing text that has important stuff, but an automated system that's going through thousands of different customers and records can't just do it on an ad hoc reading it. You need an automated way to pull those facts out of the unstructured text and make it available to your users. And so this is a quick test. Does your data platform let you answer these questions? If not, you have a problem. So can you identify patterns showing the bad guys working together? Can you go to social media to compare what your customers told you to what they're telling their friends and everybody else? If you're worried about insider trading or other kind of illegal trades, are you able to look at what messages and emails were made discussing that trade? Are people sending inside information to others? Can you show all the data relating to that trade, whether it's in a Word document, a PDF, an email, or in a relational database? And can you show all the counterparties that your traders or others have done in payments, perhaps? Can you show all of the different people who've engaged with the people you deal with? So you can see, are they engaging with trades with troublesome actors? And have you really protected all your data so that you don't want to be on the front of the New York Times because you had a data breach and 10 million of your customers had their data exposed? So all of this, and that limits your ability to do some of these other things, but you have to do it, and you need a platform that can handle all of that. And so what kind of data do you need given all these needs? So you need a data platform that can bring all your data together, no matter where it exists or what form it's in. It doesn't matter if it's relational, JSON, XML, geospatial, if it's in PDF documents or Word documents, or it's just unstructured text that somebody wrote. You need to be able to pull that in, integrate it, access it dynamically in real time in an easy way. And also, you need to be able to follow the analysis and make it all happen at once. And with this kind of information, you can now build a really good crime prevention platform. And so in addition to the data platform, you need the ability to understand the data platform. You need to be able to visualize the relationships. And this becomes especially important when you're looking for patterns of bad behavior, either people having interactions with other people who are known to be bad guys, or people who are a very common use case for fraud is that 5 or 6 firms suddenly start, they trade with each other and nobody else. It looks like they're real. and then they use that as the base to go after banks and others. And so are you able to spot things like that? And visualization, being able to draw lines and see, okay, who does this counterparty deal with? Having the ability to do stuff like that becomes really critical going forward. And so on the data platform side, Progress offers the Progress Data Platform, and it is a first-class platform for financial crime. And so we don't have time today to do a deep dive into the technology, but just at a very high level, the Progress Data Platform includes like world-class search. We can do multi-model queries, so you can take your SQL data, your PDFs, your Word documents, and make them all SQL accessible and query them as a unified whole. We do have world-class security. We can harmonize your data when it comes from different sources. We can track your lineage. An important part of financial crime is making sure you have good data, and understanding the lineage of your data is important to that. We can deduplicate your data. We can set it up so it sends alerts when problematic things happen, so you can do deep dives, perhaps using the visualization tools. And then the data platform, this is a different view of what it does. So it allows you to integrate, curate, and master your data. It allows you to provide context around all your data, because a number doesn't mean anything. The number only means something if you know the context of which that number is meant to apply. And that's something that we really focus a lot of energy, is knowing when this data is valid, when it's not, where you should use it, when you shouldn't use it. And we let you bring all that in, use it, make it viable. And so bringing it all together, the Progress Data Platform is designed to enhance your data infrastructure. And data is complicated. It comes from many sources. It's hard for users to find what they want and utilize the information stored in their systems. And because of that, a lot of analytics, especially in crime prevention, is incomplete, because it's hard to make all of that data work together. And so what firms do is basically the minimum they can, often, to just pass the rules, to get the check mark checked. And they don't, because it's so expensive and so hard to get all the data, you often don't get the complete solution that does everything you want. And Progress is really all around making sure all your data is there, all of it is accessible, and then this makes it possible to get good answers that really find the bad guys. And once again, what you want to do is you need to bring everything about your data, about your transactions, about who your customers are dealing into one place, be able to see it, and you need to be able to visualize that data. So normally what you would do is you have this data platform. It's going through big bulk of stuff, possibly hundreds of thousands of records a day, picking out alerts for things that are possibly a problem, and then you send it to the visualization tools, which with us are powered by Cambridge, and then start digging into it, saying, is this something we need to escalate? Do we need to call in law enforcement? Do we need to not allow that transaction to go through? And so here's an example of the Progress Data Platform using Cambridge's tools to allow for the visualization of the data. So this is the kind of analysis. Now, this is not financial crime per se, this is crime, but it's pulling it all together, making it real, giving you things you can click on, you can facet, you can dig into the information and make it all work. And so at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Paige to talk about data visualization.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Dan. Hey, everyone. I'm Paige. I'm part of the team here at Cambridge Intelligence. And I'm here to talk to you about something that I get asked about a lot, how graph visualization can actually make fraud investigations faster and more effective. I'll walk you through what that looks like and why it can be a game changer when you're dealing with complex data. So let's take a look. So how does visualization transform financial fraud investigations? Before visualization tools were introduced, fraud investigations were incredibly fragmented. Data was spread across multiple systems, transaction logs in one tool, customer data in another, and case notes somewhere else entirely. Investigators had to manually pull all of this together just to start building a picture. They relied heavily on spreadsheets, PDFs, and even drawing connections on whiteboards or notepads to map out relationships. This meant a lot of manual effort, limited visibility, and a higher risk of human error. Without clear visual connections between entities like accounts, transactions, people, or devices, it was difficult to spot patterns, especially in layered or sophisticated fraud schemes. As a result, investigations took longer, reporting was slower, and responses were more reactive than proactive. It was inefficient, and it left organizations vulnerable. And when working with large fraud networks, scale becomes the biggest challenge. A raw data table with thousands of transactions and entities offers no clarity, just noise. And this is where visual investigation truly changes the game. So let's look at 5 key techniques that make navigating complex networks both powerful and manageable. First, there's dynamic filtering, which allows investigators to zero in on what matters, whether it's only individuals flagged above a certain risk score or transactions from a specific window. Progressive disclosure prevents overload. Instead of showing a massive, unreadable web of connections, it loads only what's relevant, expanding the view as the investigator drills in. Pathfinding helps trace connections, like how a payment moved from one account to another through multiple intermediaries, servicing indirect relationships and hidden accomplices. Clustering and grouping reorganizes the chaos visually, letting investigators see patterns by company, region, or account type. So what used to be tangled suddenly becomes intuitive. And finally, visual alerts embed risk scoring and anomaly flags directly into the visualization. So the eye is drawn to the red flags immediately, not after a report is run. These tools shift investigations from reactive guesswork to proactive discovery at scale. So there are many tools that you can use to visualize your connected data, but here at Cambridge Intelligence, we offer 4 different types of toolkits. So we have keylines and regraph, which are our link analysis tools. We offer chronograph, which is our timeline analysis tool. And then we offer MapWeave, which is our geospatial analysis tool. So if you're not only interested in the what, the when, and the where, we've got you covered. I put together a little sample of what this looks like in real time, because when speaking about graph visualization in general, it's easier to see it than it is to try to explain it. So what you can see here is on the right, we have our link analysis tool, keylines or regraph. And then over on the left, we have our timeline analysis toolkit, which is chronograph. So from this view, you can have alerts that, with risk scores that highlight, individuals or entities that, have the highest risk that draw your eye. You can add alerts for flagged transactions and filter by that as well, which really tells you a detailed story. And on the left, as you're adding these alerts, chronograph is reacting in real time as well. And then you can combine all of the accounts together so that it shows you more of a simplified view. I mentioned before our geospatial analysis toolkit is our newest one called MapWeave. And it allows you to see geospatial analysis lets us explore data through the lens of location, helping us understand not just what happened, but where and how it relates spatially. It also enables us to track movement, evaluate proximity between entities, and identify areas of convergence or risk. So geospatial analysis turns abstract data into real world wide insights. So from the view that I'm showing you currently right now, you can see that into the individuals, how they're connected to different companies, the different money transactions that are happening within those spatially as well. And once a fraud investigator spots a suspicious pattern, whether it's a cluster of connected accounts, a timeline of rapid transactions, or overlapping geolocations, the next question is always, what's the evidence behind it? And this is where visualization alone isn't enough. Investigators need to quickly drill into the underlying data, structured, unstructured, even historical, and do it without jumping across siloed systems. That's the value of Mark Logic. It acts as the data foundation behind the visuals, giving users secure, queryable access to all the relevant information in one place. It supports the critical pivot from seeing that something is off to proving why. whether it's surfacing case history, original documents, metadata, or even cross-domain intelligence. MarkLogic makes the transition fast, seamless, and defensible. It's how you go from insight to action and build a case that stands up. So from here, I'm going to kick it back over to David to show you just how that's done.
Okay, thank you, Paige. So at this point, we're going to dig into some example implementations that we've done in the financial crimes area. So both Progress, MarkLogic, and Cambridge have a lot of experience in this space, and we have quite a few use cases that we've done. And a lot of these we're not allowed to mention the names because the firms don't let us, but there are a few that we can. And so the first is the Internal Revenue Service. So the IRS uses MarkLogic for enterprise case management. So basically, if when you submit your tax forms to the government, those are going into MarkLogic. And so this is clearly, financial crime is a huge, this is perhaps the ultimate know your customer system that everyone who pays taxes the IRS has to know who they are. They have to be able to prove the things that are said on the tax forms are valid. There's all kinds of data. When you file taxes, you have to justify what you put on the individual boxes there. And you may be sending PDFs or images or statements from banks or whatever. All of that is going into MarkLogic and is being used to help the IRS employees handle their situations. Another one, which is not purely financial, but the US government runs one of the biggest, most important terrorist watch lists using MarkLogic. And so this is clearly crime related that, so if you're not allowed on a plane, you can blame MarkLogic for that. And so the data is coming in there, and we need to be able to analyze relationships between all the different bad actors. Is somebody, do we think this person's a terrorist? One way to figure out is, do they have interactions with other people we believe are terrorists? And we need to look at bank records, transactions happening, where people are located. All of that is the base for doing that is MarkLogic. And now to move into the financial services. So in this area, we're not going to mention names. We do have live implementations of each of these, but a lot of the banks are very uncomfortable with us talking about them on webinars like this. So let's start with Know Your Customers. And so understanding your customer is not a trivial task. Depending on the situation, it may be hard, it may be easy, but basically you need to be able to pull together all kinds of information, structured, unstructured, passports, credit reports, all of this different information to really understand what's going on with your customers. And there's many applications like FATCA and anti-money laundering that really need a robust know your customer implementation. We have multiple major banks using us for that. Trade surveillance is a niche thing. Not everybody needs to do it, but I'm talking about it here because it really highlights the full breadth of data that you need. So when you're doing trade, you're basically watching out for insider trading by your traders here. And so that's definitely financial crime. And you need to pull in lots of data, trading data, market data. You need to be monitoring communications between your traders and others. Your traders know they're being watched, so they may be using code words and nicknames so to obfuscate what they're doing when they're talking to each other. You need to pull that together, and we, again, have implementations of this. And if you have that kind of need, we'd be happy to talk to you. So anti-money laundering is a huge subject. Know your customer is the core to that, but it's not the only thing. So in the old days, money laundering was basically you loaded all your data into Oracle or Teradata, and you'd run a bunch of queries looking for troublesome stuff. These days, there's a lot more to that, visualization especially. Who are you trading with? Being able to see, are you doing your trading with people who do money laundering? then there's a good chance you are too. So identifying those suspicious patterns, everything else, and so anti-money laundering is not necessarily just one little thing. It includes a lot of different pieces, and you really need a powerful platform to handle that, and we offer it. And regulatory reporting is not stopping crime, but governments take a huge interest in this subject. And so this is an analysis of a specific firm. And so they needed to do regulatory reporting. They were getting tired every time a new regulation came out. They'd build a brand new implementation to handle that, and new regulations kept coming out. So they wanted to have one platform that could handle all the regulations. So when a new regulation came out, they could just modify what they had done before, and they picked MarkLogic. And so again, there's all kinds of data. You need the ability to combine your unstructured, your PDFs, your relational data, and really make all of that relationally available. And the regulatory requirements are constantly changing. And so they did it. They avoided all the fines. This was a very major regulation that they implemented us for. And so now back to Paige to give a demo of Cambridge in action.
Thanks, David. So I'm going to explain a little bit about this demo before I get started. What we're looking at right now is an known individuals, but then an operation. So over here on the right, we're able to track the flow of money. So we have our entities and our individuals as our nodes. The links between them are the transactions, and we've styled it so that it has an arrow that shows the flow that the money is going in. Over on the left, we have Chronograph, our timeline analysis toolkit. Each individual link and node is showing you, specifically when these transactions are happening. And as you notice, when the Chronograph and Keylines or Regraph, they interact together. So the timeline toolkit interacts with the link analysis toolkit. So I'm highlighting here. You can see that there's a cash deposit made of $7,500 to Dragon Casino. It's might be a little small, but zoom in, you can see. So there's a few things you can do here. Anytime you're having a fraud investigation, alerts are a great way to kind of narrow in and take away the noise. So for instance, if we show risk scores, we now can see the individuals with the highest risk score. So if we zoom in right here, we can see that Woody Rutledge and Bethany Ellison have the highest risk score. So they're probably the people that we need to be investigating the most. As we highlight, each individual, again, if you look to the left on the timeline analysis tool, a chronograph, you can see that those interactions are highlighted as well. Another thing we can do is set up a alert for show flag transactions, for instance. So this has really transformed the chart. You're able now to see on the links they're animated, so you can actually highlight and shows those transactions that are flagged that need to be investigated. But not only that, it also tells a deep story, so we can zoom in and actually see when those specific transactions are happening. So for instance, this $4,000 was made, on May the 10th. And then as we zoom out, we can also see, if another great way to be able to narrow down is to combine the accounts. So it kind of just takes those individuals, combines those accounts and those transactions. So it tells a very detailed story. So now we're able to really track that flow of that cash deposit that was made to the business account, to Woody Rutledge, over to Ned Rupio, down to Leslie Hastings. And we can actually see when that money laundering happened. And then again, we can still zoom in on the timeline and see when those individuals happened, and they're highlighted as well, so we know what to investigate. Thank you. Hand it back over to Dan.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so thanks for the explanations, the demonstrations, all the background. It's really helpful. Hopefully, makes sense to folks. And what we'll do now is we'll move into a little bit of a Q&A session. So I've got a few questions here. I think I've got questions for both David and Paige. So I'll kick off with one for David, I think. So first question is, there are many off-the-shelf anti-crime software packages available, but how does what was presented today fit into this world? So I guess I kind of
Yeah, thank you. That's an excellent question. So one thing about progress is we are not asking you to rip everything out and replace it with something new. First of all, you would never do it. You've invested millions of dollars in your existing platform. It works. And also it would be a waste of money. What we do is help add on at the edge where there's gaps. And so we're not the ones creating the algorithms to spot the suspicious actors. We're not the ones, we don't have the financial expertise to determine, if somebody does this many trades a day and then all of a sudden it's 5 times as much, is that a problem? That's your job. What we do is we get the data ready so that we can feed it into your existing infrastructure. And we are basically capable of taking data from any source and sending it to any place that needs it. And so we are cleaning, harmonizing, making your data useful so that your existing infrastructure can give better answers. The AML software you bought is only going to give as good answers as the data. It's garbage in, garbage out, and our job is to make it so that you never have to say those words. That people never say those words about you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And sticking with you and sticking with that subject of the kind of integration, I guess there's a question which I think is talking about change that's going on out there. So how easy is it to adapt this as new regulations and new approaches to crime come out, so as the world is changing around you, I guess?
Yeah, so this has been a huge problem for the financial services industry, that a new regulation comes out and they just want it to go away. They just want to fix it. And so the easiest way to solve it on a spot basis is you just start up something new, do the minimum you can. And the problem is when the next regulation comes, it's different. You do the same thing and then you end up with 30 different silos, each of which needs to be maintained. And what we do is we build the platform where the data comes in, we store it the way the data originally came in, and then we can make it available to each application the way it needs it. And so we're harmonizing it. And what we bring is agile to data. So agile is a huge thing in the IT world, but it's mostly for programming. And so the idea is that you don't figure out a waterfall method where you figure out every spec before you start. Instead, you build the deliverables you build your application for the first deliverable, and then when the second one comes out, you modify it, enhance it, but keep using what you have. And like relational, you cannot do that because you have to define your schemas rigidly. If you want to change it, you have to export your data and re-import it again. And it's not backward compatible with us. You can just keep adding more and more data. Like if you take mortgages, for example, mortgages last 30 years. The way banks modeled mortgages 30 years ago is very different than the way they're modeling them today, even though some of the properties are the same. And so we allow you to bring that data in, enrich it, make it better, and let your old stuff keep running the way it ran, but allow the new functionality to come in. So we are very good at setting up situations to handle changing environments. And that's one of our key use cases, is we bring agile to data.
There you go, agile for data. Sounds good. So I guess even a more extreme kind of change is there's a question here around kind of real-time exploration. So the question is, how does real-time exploration aspect work? Does the data synchronize with the BI application, and can fraud detection rules be applied to transactions? So I guess we're talking about like live transaction monitoring, real-time stuff going on.
So I can take that, and if Paige wants to add to it. So the MarkLogic database is ACID. We have bulk load functions, but even within that, it's always ACID. So as soon as you insert a document or a record, it is available for every other use. So no matter what you're doing, it's always, in a sense, real time for us. And then you just need your tools to be able to pull the data. And also we have alerting so that when interesting things are happening, when you insert the document, we can send out an alert so that it can then be looked into more closely. So we fully support the real-time aspect of the data, and you just need tools that are able to consume those alerts or have a feed of the data that we can stream it through Kafka or whatever you want, but you just need an application that's able to accept that data in real time.
Yeah, that's maybe a good time to bring Paige in and talk a little bit about, because alerts are a good example of a point where you need to communicate something to a user, and something I've seen myself recently more than ever with AI is just alert fatigue. There are so many brilliant systems out there for detecting things, but now you're bombarding users with alerts and getting to look at things, and that's of course where you need some kind of telling of the story and communicating what's going on. So yeah, coming to the visualization side, there's a question which I'll ask to you, Paige. I guess maybe I'll start with the most general one, which is how customizable are the visualizations?
Yeah, that's a great question. One I'm asked quite a bit. As far as customization goes, there's so many different customization options. You can customize the shape and the color and the look of the node. For instance, if you want to have a square or a rectangle, or you want to add in more information, you're able to do that. You can have glyphs that tell it more information as well. To just to really make it more descriptive. As far as the links go, those are customizable as well. Going back to the demo, I showed, you had an arrow that showed the flow of money. We were able to animate it. We changed the coloring. So there's lots of different styling techniques that you can add to the links and the nodes, and even to the chart itself. You can add layouts to the charts. As well. There are different types of annotation features that can, really tell a detailed story. Um, I think the list is quite long as far as customization. So to answer your question, it is as you can customize it as much as you want, really make it your own. And yeah.
Yeah, and I think it has to be right, because coming back to the use cases I was talking about at the beginning, we're looking at anything from financial crime, real crime, physical crime, cybersecurity, and so one size I think definitely doesn't fit all. And an analyst is not necessarily a data expert, right? They're an analyst in their specific area. So the more you can adapt it to what they're doing, I think that makes a lot of sense. Okay, this is a question which I think relates to Paige's presentation, but I might throw it open to both of you. I don't know how easy it is to answer this one, but what types of fraud are easiest to detect using graphs? If anyone wants to have a go at that one.
I'll take a stab at it first. We use the money laundering demo. So it's one of our top, I guess, within fraud is probably one of our top use cases. That, and insider trading, or just insurance fraud. But honestly, any fraud. If there's an investigation that needs to happen, it's a great fit for graph visualization. But how about your case, Stephen?
Yeah, so I would say, in my experience, graph is most valuable for identifying bad actors or patterns. So like in the payments world, a common source of fraud is several firms will start, they'll be created in one day, they'll trade with each other, it'll look like they're real firms, and then the bank thinks they're real. And the bank doesn't know. The bank knows the firm that they have the relationship. They don't know that these other firms only started the day before. And so having a strong graph visualization tool allows you to look at what are the trading patterns. Is this guy, my counterparty, only dealing with the same three people, and they only deal with the same people too? And that's something where the tools becomes very powerful and very valuable. And there's lots, MarkLogic actually started after 9/11, that the government wanted to capture stop the terrorists from getting on the plane, not figure out who blew up the plane afterwards. And so they put out a call, and we were created at that point. And so that kind of figuring out who is the bad guy, who shouldn't be allowed on the plane, and things like that was what we were created to solve. That, and we've grown into a lot of other areas since then. But that was the core of where we began, and it's a big part of where we are today. And the graph visualization of seeing who's linked to who's doing bad stuff, is a very powerful part of that.
Yeah, I would echo that. And sometimes it's it's the things where you don't know what you're looking for that the graph does the
Yes.
best. If you know exactly what a certain fraud looks like, then maybe a machine learning can just find it without having to see it. But it's when you're doing the more exploratory, looking for things you've not discovered before, or the next kind of fraud that somebody has come up with, that a picture is way more powerful than any kind of data table, I think. Okay, I think we maybe have time for one more. It wouldn't be a modern webinar if we didn't talk about AI. So I think I'll finish with an AI question. The question is, I saw an AI chat in the product screenshot. How do you integrate an LLM with a solution? I guess that was the screenshot you presented, David, I think. So I'll throw
Yeah. So yeah, well, like many other firms, Gen AI is a huge part of what we do today. And our focus, just to give a high overview, is if you need accurate answers, come to us. That LLMs have huge problems with hallucinations and things. For many applications, that doesn't matter. If you're doing something critical, like destroying somebody's reputation by falsely accusing them of a crime, you really want accurate answers. And so what we do is we let you take all of your data and then make it accessible through RAG, retrieval augmented, whatever the G stands for. And so that's what our job is, to make it that when you ask your RAG system, your LLM, a question, that it has exactly the data it needs to answer that question and nothing else. So we have a lot of tools, like we use knowledge graphs and ontologies to make sure we're getting all the data. If you ask a question like, tell me about bonds and high risk, we found that you generally, if you go to Google, you only get a quarter of the answers, because a muni is a kind of a bond, and Google may not know that. And so we expand the knowledge base with a lot of metadata to make sure we're getting everything together, and then bringing it to the RAG to the LLM implementation. So, and with our abilities, we can take tables of data, we can take your PDFs and things, extract facts, just feed it to them and make it available to the applications. So it is a big part of what we do. And we welcome anybody who has a financial crimes platform that they would like to, make LLM enabled. And that is, banks often view this stuff as being a cost and looking for cheaper ways. And LLM is a way to do that. And we're happy to work with you to make that happen.
Makes sense. Okay, I think we are just about out of the time we had, so I think I'll wrap up there. Just want to finish with a big thank you to both our presenters, David and Paige. Thanks for taking the time to go through this. Thanks to those who submitted a question, and at that point, we'll wrap up. See you at the next one.
Okay.
Bye.